Well, we just got back from spending the night in the jungle.
And yeah, it was pretty cool.
We start out day one by getting into our transport from the hostel at 5 a.m. A couple of hours outside of Cusco, and we begin to enter Manu National Park in what is known as the Cloud Forest. The dark green area is what is known as the reserve zone, which means no one is allowed in there except for permitted researchers. Most of our time will take place in the gray and yellow zones. The yellow is the tourism and recreation area, and the gray is the buffer zone, where they allow local communities to continue with their farming activities. The first thing we came across was a green toucanid in a green tree. So to say that I would have spotted nothing on the way down does not explain how amazing Moises and our chef, Cesar, were at spotting things. We would occasionally stop the car and walk along the road, and they could tell by the sounds of the jungle what animals were nearby and what trees they liked to hang out in. We were able to see the Peruvian national bird, the Andean cock of the rock, and the golden-headed quetzal, as well as 2 species of monkeys. This big one is the brown woolly monkey. And I believe the small one is one of the varieties of capuchin monkey that they host in the forest. We ended the day at our lodge for the night, the Bamboo Manu Eco Lodge, which was a beautiful place to have dinner and stay the night. Here you can see that they have quite a few of these 2-story bungalows. The ones that we saw all had their own bathrooms, were well screened in from mosquitoes and bugs, and gave us all mosquito nets in addition to all of that. It was a wonderful break from the city to fall asleep to cicadas and frogs and the wind through the trees. But Moises wasn't done with us yet. We took a night walk, and Melinda discovered her new least favorite spider, the scorpion spider.
I could ordinarily handle it just fine, but when we found it, we were on a 1-foot wide ledge about 15 feet above water with a mossy wall on which the spider was. And
There were 2 of them.
There were 2 of them. And then Jeremiah tried to slip off, and I was trying to grab him and hold him from falling in the water while he was trying to decide whether he wanted to fall in the water or fall against the spider.
As we were walking out in the jungle, this cute little snake almost fell on my head. We also got to see a stick bug, leafcutter ants, and several wolf spiders. We woke up early, ate breakfast, and got back on the road until we got to the river and met up with our boat crew. As we traveled down the river for a couple of hours, we made our first stop, pulled the boat up to the side of the river, and began to hike into the jungle. We immediately found this cute owl with an expression on its face Melinda felt an immediate kinship with. We got to a small boat dock on the lake, and Moises paddled us across. We climbed to the top of a lookout tower at the far end of the lake and were able to get some stunning views of the birds of the area. Unfortunately, as would become a theme of this trip, we did not see any wild capybara.
Why?
So we started our trek back to the boat, and along the way, we stumbled across a Peruvian red-tailed boa. We made it back to the boat and then continued downriver until we arrived at our lunch spot, a natural hot springs.
So, they pipe in the cold water from up here, and then you can see the hot water flowing down from the rocks over here. So they put little rocks inside of these bamboo troughs so that the hot water spills over, and this is where it kind of mixes. And as you swim around, you can feel it's hotter in some places and colder in others. You can find the right temperature.
After that, it was back onto the boat and heading downriver to our final destination. A short walk later, and we arrived at the camp for the Hidden Jungles tours. Here, you can see the room we stayed in. which had a bathroom with a flushing toilet, which was a welcome sight to see. This was only a pit stop, however. As we dropped our luggage off, we struck out into the jungle once more to an observation blind that they built about an hour into the jungle in search of a tapir and other nocturnal animals.
We spent the night in essentially like a blind by a clay lick where sometimes tapirs like to come hang out. We didn't see any last night, although there was one that apparently ran into the building because it smelled our boots and got scared and ran away, if that explains how bad our socks smell right now.
Unfortunately, we didn't find anything more than the usual suspects we had seen before. We started with early morning hike through the jungle to try and see what we could find while the animals were still active. Our lack of luck at night was made up for by spotting several species of macaw and toucan. This is the red and green macaw we found eating some berries off of a tree along with its mate. They're one of the birds that generally mate for life. We also found out that the cicadas in Peru, when they come up from underground, leave behind these little pillars of mud. As we were walking through the deep jungle, we heard absolute chaos from further in. We went off the beaten path and pushed through brush to find what sounded like toucan defending a nest or a tree of food from something we couldn't see. These are the white-throated toucan. As we continued our walks, we came across what I believe is a tamarin monkey. There were maybe a dozen of them playing in the trees, but they tended not to hold still for very long. They certainly were cute. This clip is all we got, but this is the endangered scarlet macaw. We ended our last bit of daylight by watching a tree full of squirrel monkeys playing around. They didn't hold still for the camera, but with binoculars we got to watch them run around and play and eat their fill out of the trees. As we walked around looking for caiman at night, we didn't find any, but we did find this cute little guy. A rodent of unusual size called the maja locally, or the lowland paca if you want to look it up on Wikipedia. The last day of the trek, we woke up well before dawn. We got onto the boat and onto the river before the sun even began to rise. But when it started to rise, boy was it beautiful. But eventually we got to something called the Salt Lick that was known for parrots and macaws. As we were watching, a flock of parrots with beautiful yellow heads came flying in as well. After that, it was back on the boat and heading back towards the dock. Melinda was trying to console me about failing to find any capybara on the trip, but I refused to admit defeat. Scanning through the shore for capybara, she reminded me that it was unlikely we would find any on the main river. And then, miraculously, Moises called out that he had spotted a family on the side of the river. They'd blend in really well, but there was a family of probably around 5 that we could see. With that item checked off the list, I had a smile on my face for the rest of the way home. Going into the Amazon and learning about and seeing all of these animals was certainly the once-in-a-lifetime kind of trip we were hoping it would be. Thank you very much to Moises and to everyone who helped make this trip magical. Can't recommend them highly enough.